My daughter-in-law spit in my face during an argument, and my son told me I deserved it. I didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't even look at them. I just wiped my cheek, walked upstairs, and went to bed. The next morning, they woke up to the smell of pancakes and saw the table overflowing with breakfast. My son smirked, "Good. You finally understood your place." But when they noticed who was sitting beside me at the table, they froze solid. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below, and let me tell you how we got here. If you love real emotional stories, hit subscribe. We post one every day. My name is Helen Carter, 61 years old, and until this week, I believed I was enjoying a quiet retirement in the house I'd lived in for 4 decades. 6 months ago, my son Evan and his wife Lily moved back in after losing their apartment. "Just for a few weeks, Mom," he'd said. I should have known better. Evan has always been comfortable taking advantage of my kindness. The blow-up started over something ridiculous. Lily had rearranged my entire kitchen, drawers, shelves, spices, all in places that made no sense. When I gently asked her to return things to where they'd been, she exploded. "This is exactly your problem," she screamed. "You're suffocating. No wonder your husband left you." "My husband died," I reminded her quietly, though Lily never cared about facts when an insult felt better. All I wanted back were my measuring cups. Instead, she stepped closer, shaking with rage. "I'm done with your little museum house rules." And then she spit, full force, into my face. Warm saliva sliding down my cheek. I looked to Evan, expecting him to defend me. Instead, he shrugged. "Mom, you kind of provoke her. You make her feel unwelcome." The betrayal cut deeper than the spit. So I walked away. Locked my bedroom door. Sat in the dark. And something cold and steady settled inside me. I had resources they didn't know about. And I had finally reached my limit. Before dawn, I went downstairs and made a breakfast spread like I used to make for holidays: pancakes, French toast, bacon, fruit, the works. I set the table carefully, almost ceremonially. When they came down, Evan nodded approvingly. "Good. You finally get your role here." That's when they noticed the stranger sitting beside me. A man in a navy suit, calmly eating pancakes. Evan stiffened. "Mom, who is this?" I smiled. "Evan, Lily, this is Mr. Adrian Brooks. He's a lawyer." Lily's coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Mr. Brooks stood, offering a polite handshake. "Your mother and I have been discussing some legal matters this morning." "What legal matters?" Evan asked, voice cracking. Mr. Brooks opened his briefcase. "Situations involving elder mistreatment. Also, revisions to her will." Lily paled. "What, revisions?" I buttered my toast. "Oh, some major ones. Turns out I don't feel comfortable leaving my house and savings to people who treat me like a burden." Evan grabbed a chair. "Mom, don't do this." Lily was upset. Lily cut him off. "Helen, you can't rewrite everything because of one argument. Family doesn't spit on family," I said. "And you two will be finding another place to stay." Evan's face collapsed. "Mom, we can't afford that." "Oh," I murmured, "I know." And I took a long, satisfied sip of my coffee. "You've been unemployed for 6 months, and Lily was fired from her last job for stealing office supplies." "I wasn't stealing," Lily snapped. "They were just pens and paper." $49 worth of pens and paper, I corrected. "I called your former manager yesterday. She had quite a lot to say about your work ethic." Adrian watched the exchange with polite curiosity. He'd probably seen dozens of families unravel like this. "You called my boss?" Lily's voice shot up an octave. You had no right. I had every right to learn about the character of the people living under my roof, I said calmly. Especially people who spit in my face. That was one incident, Evan pleaded. Mom, you're going to destroy our family over one mistake. One incident. I put down my fork. Evan, in the 6 months you've lived here, you've contributed nothing. You've eaten my food, used my heat and electricity, and treated me like the maid. The spit was just the final straw. Adrian cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, should we discuss the timeline for the updates? Timeline? Lily snapped. The new will takes effect immediately, I said. And I'll need the two of you out of my home by the end of the week. Evan's face crumpled. Mom, where are we supposed to go? I suggest you figure that out quickly, Adrian said, closing his folder. Ms. Carter is also changing the locks on Friday. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Actually, I said, reaching for the envelope beside my coffee cup, there is one way I might reconsider all of this. Evan practically lunged for it. Hope flickered in his eyes like a dying candle. What do you mean? Lily asked, narrowing her eyes. I slid 3 printed photos across the table. While I was cleaning the basement yesterday, I found something interesting. The photos showed Evan's old comic collection, boxes stacked neatly, sleeves intact. Comics he'd asked me to just store, claiming they were worthless. Adrian leaned forward. Are those? First edition Amazing Fantasy number 15, I said. Your father bought it for him when he was 12. Evan went pale. Mom. You didn't. Oh, I did. I pulled out my phone. Here's the listing I put on eBay at 5 this morning. Current bid is at $8,000. $8,000? Lily gasped. That's just the opening round, Adrian murmured, impressed. Mint condition issues go for $20,000 or more. You can't sell those, Evan shouted. They're mine. Are they? I asked sweetly. Because when you dumped them in my basement, you claimed they were junk you didn't want. I offered to toss them, remember? Evan's mouth opened and closed like a fish. And legally, Adrian added, property left unclaimed in a residence for more than 6 months defaults to the homeowner. Lily's eyes darted as she calculated. Money changed everything with her. Helen, she said suddenly, voice smooth as syrup, maybe we've all been too emotional. Perhaps we can work out an arrangement. What kind of arrangement? I asked, though I already knew exactly where this would go. Well, Lily looked at Evan. What if we paid rent? A fair amount. Adrian raised an eyebrow. What amount do you consider fair? 500. Evan said hopefully. I laughed. Actually laughed. This house is worth over $1 million. Fair market rent is $2,500. Their faces crumpled. However, I continued, I might consider a different kind of agreement. Lily leaned forward like a cat spotting prey. What kind? I handed over a paper I'd prepared, a formal contract. You can stay rent-free for exactly 90 days while you find jobs and save for your own place. And in exchange. Adrian jumped in smoothly, you'll attend weekly family counseling, contribute to expenses once employed, and treat Ms. Carter with the respect she's due as the homeowner. And, I added, if you break a single boundary, the deal is void. You're out the same day. Lily scanned the contract. This is very detailed. It needs to be, Adrian said. Clear expectations make for fewer explosions. And if we sign, Evan asked quietly, you'll cancel the comic auction? I smiled. Oh, no. Those proceeds are mine no matter what. Consider it back rent. The silence was thick and choking. I could feel them weighing pride against desperation. "We need to talk," Lily said. "Take your time," I replied. "Adrian and I will be outside." On the patio, Adrian shook his head. "You cornered them with elegance. They can't afford to leave, but they can't afford to live here on your terms." "They'll sign," I said simply. "Lily won't admit defeat, and Evan's terrified of standing on his own." "And if they break the agreement?" "Then," I said, watching them argue through the window, "I get my house back. Either way, I win." 20 minutes later, they emerged with the signed contract. And judging by Lily's stiff smile, she was already planning her first violation. She lasted 11 days. It started small: dirty dishes, sarcastic remarks, petty messes left for me to deal with. Testing me. Pushing to see whether the consequences were real. But I had photos. Screenshots. Dates. Times. Documentation of every arrogant misstep. And Lily had no idea how ready I was for round 2. Even phone recordings, hours of them, where Lily bad-mouthed me to anyone who would pick up her calls. Adrian was the one who suggested I keep evidence, just in case. Smart man. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday morning. For days, I'd noticed subtle changes in my bedroom. A dresser drawer not fully closed. My earrings case sitting at a slightly different angle. A stack of letters pushed a little too far to the right. At first, I chalked it up to forgetfulness. Then I walked in and found my bank statements scattered across my desk like someone had been shuffling through them in a hurry. "Lily," I called downstairs. "Could you come up here, please?" She appeared in my doorway with that practiced expression, wide-eyed innocence stretched over a guilty conscience. "You wanted me?" I pointed to the desk. "Would you like to explain why my financial documents are all over the room?" "I don't know what you mean." Her gaze flicked to the papers and back, way too fast. "Maybe you misplaced things. That happens, you know, with age." There it was. The disrespect clause violation I'd been waiting for. "Are you implying I'm having memory issues?" I asked. "I'm implying maybe you're confused," she said, voice syrupy with fake concern. I held up my phone and swiped to the photos I'd taken 2 days earlier, my desk perfectly organized, everything filed, time-stamped. "Unless I imagine taking these." Her expression snapped like a rubber band. The fake kindness evaporated. "Fine," she said coldly. "I looked at your bank statements. Do you know how frustrating it is to be broke while living with someone who has 6 figures just sitting around? So you invaded my privacy." "I needed to know what we were dealing with," she said. "Evan wants to ask you for money for a business idea, and I wanted to see if you could actually afford it." This was new. "What business?" I asked. "He wants to start a landscaping company. He'll need around $30,000 for equipment and a truck." $30,000. They couldn't pay for groceries, but they were planning to ask me for 30 grand. "And you thought digging through my private papers was the right approach?" I asked. "I thought it would help me understand if you're really as stingy as you act," she snapped, "or if you're just being cruel." That was enough. "Pack your things, Lily." "What?" She barked out a laugh. "You can't kick me out for looking at some papers. That's insane." "I'm recording this entire conversation," I said, holding up my phone. "You just admitted to searching my financial records without permission. And you insulted me. Again." Her face fell. You were recording me." "This is my house," I said calmly. "I'm allowed to record anything that happens in it." She stood frozen, mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide whether to scream or cry. "Evan won't let you do this," she finally managed. "He won't. He signed the same contract you did." She stormed downstairs, yelling for him. I followed at my own pace, not rushing. I already knew exactly how this would unfold. "Evan," she shouted. "Your mother has lost her mind." Evan shuffled out of the living room where he'd been watching TV instead of applying for work. "What's happening?" "Your wife violated our agreement," I said simply. "She went through my private documents and insulted me when I confronted her." Evan froze. I could practically hear the gears turning: wife versus free housing, marriage versus stability. "Mom," he said carefully, "maybe we can talk this out." "Lily, apologize to her." "I'm not apologizing," Lily snapped. "This whole contract is ridiculous. She's using her money to control us." "The rules aren't hard," I said. "Just basic respect." "See?" Lily shouted at Evan. "She treats us like children, like servants. It's not our home." Evan finally exploded. "It's her house. Her groceries. Her electricity. Her everything. And instead of being grateful, you've been acting entitled." It was the first spine I'd seen in him in months. "Grateful?" Lily screeched. "For being monitored. For having to ask permission to move a spoon. For living with someone who takes pictures of every tiny thing we do." "Yes," Evan shouted. "Because without her generosity, we'd be sleeping in your car." That shut her up. "We wouldn't be sleeping in my car," she said quietly. "Because I sold my car." The room went dead silent. "You what?" Evan stared at her like he'd never seen her before. "I sold it 3 months ago," Lily said, voice trembling. "To pay our credit card bill." "You sold your car and didn't tell me." "I was trying to fix things without running to your mother for help. By going through my private documents," I reminded her. She didn't deny it. Just deflated, like her anger had burned out and left ashes. Evan sank onto the couch. "Lily, what else haven't you told me?" She swallowed hard. "The credit cards, the student loans, and the personal loan my mother co-signed for that business idea I had last year." "What business idea?" "The one that failed." The truth hung between them, heavy and sour. Their marriage, their finances, their lives, everything was unraveling right in front of me. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about witnessing it. I felt free. Lily swallowed hard. "The online boutique," she whispered. "I maxed out our cards buying inventory that never sold. In the span of 5 minutes, I'd learned more about their financial chaos than I had in 6 months of sharing a roof." "So let me get this straight," I said, keeping my voice even. "You're tens of thousands in debt. You sold your car. You have no income. And your solution was to dig through my private documents so you could convince me to hand you more money?" "When you say it like that," Lily mumbled, "it sounds awful." "It doesn't just sound awful," I said. "It is." I unfolded the signed agreement and set it on the table between us. "And more importantly, it breaks our contract." Evan looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. "Mom, please don't make us leave. We don't have anywhere else. You should have considered that before your wife turned my bedroom into a scavenger hunt." "I'll fix this," Evan insisted. "I'll get a job. Any job. I'll pay rent. Lily will apologize." "Evan, don't you dare," Lily started, but he cut across her. "Lily, either you apologize to my mother right now or we're sleeping on the sidewalk. Your call." She stared at him like he'd betrayed her in the deepest possible way. "You're choosing her over me." "I'm choosing survival over pride," he said. "Something you might try." Lily's face twisted, anger, shock, resentment, until finally it collapsed into resignation. She turned toward me with an expression so forced it might as well have been carved from plastic. "Helen. I'm sorry for going through your papers. It was wrong. I won't do it again. Evan nudged her. And I'm sorry for being disrespectful, she added flatly. I studied her face. The apology was stiff, but it existed. Thank you, Lily, I said. I accept it. Evan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath underwater. So, we can stay. I folded the contract and slipped it into my pocket. Yes. On one condition. Lily narrowed her eyes. What condition? Evan starts job hunting today. Real jobs. Retail, cafe work, warehouse, whatever he can find. No business schemes. No shortcuts. Done, he said immediately. And Lily, I added, since you're so invested in my finances, you'll help me organize my paperwork. She winced. Organize your paperwork. All of it. Taxes, insurance, bank statements, investment files. You'll learn my financial reality the correct way. Is this supposed to be punishment? She muttered. I smiled. No. It's education. Because once you understand my situation, you'll realize why I'm cautious. What does that mean? She asked. It means my so-called hundreds of thousands may not be the treasure chest you think. Their eyes flicked toward each other, a silent exchange of confusion and dread. They were about to learn they'd made some very bold assumptions. Lily's education began the next morning in my home office. I had boxes spread out, labels ready, a spreadsheet open. We'll start with tax returns, I said, handing her a stack. 5 years should do. She sat down reluctantly. But an hour later, her entire posture had changed. Helen, she said slowly, these show you only bring in about $40,000 a year, from Social Security and a pension. That's correct. But the savings accounts. Those came from selling my late father-in-law's business, I said. Evan glanced up from his laptop. I thought it was just a tiny bookkeeping office. Small doesn't mean worthless, I replied. He spent decades building trust. After he died, I sold the client list and the lease. How much did you get? Lily asked. Enough to help me retire, I said simply. But as she kept flipping through statements, her frown deepened. The balances drop every month. Yes, I said. Because when you're living on a fixed income, you pull from savings. And savings don't refill themselves. Evan swallowed. How long will your money last? At my current spending rate. About a dozen years. Fewer if I need long-term care. The realization washed over both of them. I wasn't a bottomless well of money. I was a retiree trying to make a finite amount stretch through old age. But the house, Lily said. It's worth a fortune. It's worth that if I sell it, I corrected. But if I sell it, I still need a place to live. Rent would eat through my savings 4 times faster. Evan shut his laptop. I never understood. I just assumed you were comfortable. I am comfortable, I said. If I'm careful. Supporting 2 more adults long-term would change everything. Lily sifted through more pages. What about this investment account? The one under Brooks' management. My stomach tightened. Adrian had warned me that account drew attention. That's my emergency fund, I said. It's managed to protect it against inflation. How much is in it? She pressed. That's not relevant to this. It shows quarterly dividends, she said quietly. Large ones. Evan leaned forward. Mom, how much? I hesitated. I should have lied. But the question had cornered me. Roughly 400,000. The room went silent. Evan's voice cracked. Mom, that changes everything. No, I said. It really doesn't. But with that money, you could. I could empty my future to support your irresponsibility, I cut in. That account is not for you. It's to keep me alive when I'm old. Lily set the papers down slowly. So, you do have money. You've been pretending to be broke. I looked her dead in the eyes. No, Lily. I've been telling the truth. You just never understood the difference between having money and needing it to survive. I've been realistic, I said calmly. There's a difference. I never pretended to be destitute. You two simply assumed I was barely scraping by. I looked at Lily. And you never asked about my finances until you decided to rummage through my bedroom. Evan stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. 600,000 in savings, plus the house, he whispered. Mom, on paper you're worth over $1 million. And I'm 70 years old, I reminded him. With nothing but Social Security coming in. $1 million may sound like a fortune, but it has to stretch for possibly 20 more years. That's 50,000 a year, Lily said, doing the math quickly. Plus Social Security. You could live comfortably. Unless I require assisted living, I countered. 60,000 a year. Or memory care. 90. Or long-term medical support, which costs even more. Their faces shifted as the numbers sank in. So you're not poor, Evan said slowly. But you're not rich either. I'm stable, I said. As long as I'm cautious. And as long as I don't take on surprises. Lily dropped her gaze. Such as 2 unemployed adults, she murmured. Exactly. But even as we talked, something else weighed on my mind, the phone call I'd received that morning from my actual financial advisor. The advisor who handled accounts Lily hadn't even glimpsed. And that call changed everything. My phone rang during lunch, cutting through what had been a surprisingly civil discussion about budgets and jobs. Helen Carter speaking, I answered. Mrs. Carter, this is Dana Pierce from Silvercrest Advisors. I have news regarding your father's estate that needs immediate attention. I stepped away from the table, though not far enough for Evan and Lily to miss a word. My father's estate was settled 15 years ago, I said. That's what we believed, Dana replied. But we discovered an oversight in the probate documents. There's an asset that was never properly transferred to you. Evan and Lily froze mid-bite. What kind of asset? I asked. A commercial building in downtown Portland. Your father owned it through a quiet subsidiary that wasn't identified during the original filing. The tenants have been paying rent into a state-held escrow account for 15 years. My heart stopped. How much rent? Approximately $4,000 a month. The escrow balance is currently $743,000. I gripped the phone tighter. Money I never knew belonged to me. Mrs. Carter. Are you still there? I'm here, I said. What do I need to do? We need you in our office to sign the transfer documents. The property and the escrow funds can be moved to your name immediately. I'll come this afternoon. When I turned around, Evan and Lily were staring at me like I'd grown wings. $700,000, Evan whispered. It appears so, I said. Lily pushed back her chair, breath quickening. Helen, this changes everything. With that money, you could. I could what? I asked. You could help us get back on our feet. You could loan Evan the money for his business idea. I sat down and resumed eating my sandwich as though we were discussing the weather. Could I? I said mildly. Mom, Evan pleaded, this is like winning the lottery. That money could fix our problems. Whose problems? I asked without looking up. Yours? Or mine? Our problems, he insisted. We're family. I set my sandwich down. Evan, what exactly are your problems? You know what they are. We're in debt. We're unemployed. We don't have a place to. Those, I said, are your problems. Not family problems. Lily leaned forward. Helen, come on. Be reasonable. You don't need all that money sitting untouched. Don't I? You already have enough saved for retirement, she said. This is extra. Found money. Lily, I asked, if you suddenly found $700,000, would your first instinct be to give it away? That's different. How? Because we're family, she repeated. Family helps family. Family contributes, I corrected. Has either of you contributed anything? I've been looking for work, Lily said defensively. You've been sleeping until noon and complaining about my rules. That's not fair. Evan, I said, turning to him, you've applied for exactly 3 jobs in 6 months. All beneath your standards. I don't want to waste my degree working retail. But you're willing to waste my retirement avoiding work entirely. They both fell silent. We're trying, Evan whispered. No. You're waiting for me to solve everything. Lily tried a new angle. What if this was a business arrangement? You could invest in Evan's landscaping company. We'd pay you back with interest. What's Evan's business plan? I asked. We haven't written it yet, she admitted. What experience does he have? He's good with yard work. What's his market research? Who are his customers? What services will he offer? Startup costs. Timeline for profitability. The silence said everything. So, I said, you want me to invest $30,000 in a business that exists only in Evan's imagination, run by someone with no experience, no research, and no plan. When you put it like that. I'm putting it accurately, I said. And that is exactly how found money becomes lost money. Evan's voice cracked. Mom, what would it take for you to consider helping us? I stood and began clearing the table. Show me you're capable of helping yourselves first. What does that mean? Lily asked. It means. Get jobs, any jobs. Earn your own money. Manage it responsibly. Create a real business plan with research and projections. How long will that take? Lily demanded. As long as it takes. But we need help now. You needed help 6 months ago, I said calmly. You've had half a year to make progress. Instead, you've lived off my generosity while planning to ask for even more. I carried the dishes to the kitchen, leaving them silent at the table. But I had another reason for heading to Portland that afternoon, one I hadn't shared. The meeting at Silvercrest Advisors was better than I expected. Dana Pierce, a sharp-eyed woman who'd clearly untangled decades of financial knots, spread documents across a polished conference table. Mrs. Carter, your father was remarkably strategic, she said. And the property is more valuable than we realized. She tapped the paperwork. The escrow account contains $743,000. But there's something else. I braced myself. What is it? One of the tenants is struggling financially. They're 3 months behind on rent, and they've asked about purchasing the building. Purchasing it? I repeated. Yes. She slid a folder toward me. Their preliminary offer is $1.8 million. My breath caught. A building I didn't know existed. A fortune I never expected. And an offer that could change the rest of my life. I set down the papers, my hands trembling just enough to betray the weight of the numbers staring back at me, $1.8 million, plus the accumulated rent, bringing the total to over $2.5 million. Mrs. Carter, are you all right? Adrian Brooks asked gently. I'm fine, I said. Just, absorbing the scale of all this. There's one more detail, he continued. The purchase offer requires closing within 60 days. The tenant company is expanding aggressively. If you don't sell, they'll relocate and terminate the lease. Considering they're your largest tenant, the property value would drop significantly. I leaned back. This wasn't lucky money falling from the sky. This was a decision that could reroute the rest of my life. I need time, I murmured. Of course, Adrian said. Then, more softly, may I be candid? Yes. At your age, liquid assets tend to offer more freedom than property management. Selling would give you true financial independence. She wasn't wrong. With the right investments, I'd never worry again. I could even help Evan and Lily, if they deserved it. By the time I drove home, the transfer papers and a cashier's check for $743,000 rested in my purse. I'd already made my decision. But first, I wanted to see what my son and daughter-in-law had accomplished while I was gone. They were exactly where I'd left them. Evan was hunched over his laptop, not job hunting, but scrolling through landscaping machinery. Lily was sketching logos and business names as if she were CEO of a company that didn't exist. How did the meeting go? Evan asked. The property is officially mine, I said. The money's in my account. That's incredible. Lily squealed. So you can help us get our business started? I sat across from them. Actually, I received a purchase offer. For $1.8 million. Their jaws dropped in perfect unison. Plus the rental income, it totals about $2.5 million, I added. Lily practically vibrated. Helen, this means we could be set for life. I corrected calmly. This is my inheritance. But we're family, Evan said, trying for sincerity. Yes, I said. Let's talk about that. Evan, what exactly did you do today? He gestured defensively toward the laptop. I was researching commercial mowers, planning the business. You were shopping for equipment, I said, instead of applying for a single actual job. I was planning. You were fantasizing. I turned to Lily. And you? She held up her notebook weakly. Branding ideas. More fantasizing. I closed the notebook. Not 1 minute of real progress from either of you. We were planning our future, Lily insisted. You were planning how to spend my money, I said. Not the same thing. Evan leaned forward urgently. Mom, with $2.5 million, you could invest in us. You wouldn't even feel it. Could I afford it? Yes. Should I invest in 2 adults who refuse to work while living rent-free in my home? Absolutely not. You're being cruel, Lily snapped. No. Practical. I drew a breath. And I've made my decision about the sale. They stilled. I'm accepting the offer, I said. But there's a condition. What condition? Evan asked tightly. I pulled up a listing on my phone, an apartment. 2 bedrooms. 20 minutes away. Available immediately. You want us to move? Lily's voice flattened. I want you to become independent adults. The lease will be in your names. I'll cover the first month as a parting gift. After that, you support yourselves like every other married couple. We can't afford that. Evan protested. Then you'd better find work quickly. And if we don't? Lily whispered. You'll learn what real financial pressure feels like. Something my generosity hasn't been able to teach you. I wasn't done with surprises. The viewing was set for Thursday morning. I insisted on driving them, so they couldn't slip away from the responsibility. The apartment was perfect for them. 2 bedrooms. Updated kitchen. Washer/dryer hookups. Rent at $1,500, doable, but only if they actually worked. It's nice, Evan admitted grudgingly. The kitchen is bigger than I expected, Lily said, attempting enthusiasm but clearly searching for excuses. While Carol, the property manager, explained the lease terms, my phone vibrated. A message from Adrian. Call me immediately. Urgent development. I stepped outside. Adrian. What happened? Helen, we need to meet today. Something serious has come up. It concerns your daughter-in-law. My, what? Lily's former employer filed a criminal complaint. Embezzlement. The world seemed to tilt. Embezzlement? I thought she was fired for taking office supplies. That was the surface issue. They uncovered forged purchase orders and invoices to fake vendors. Nearly $50,000 over 6 months. 50,000. My stomach knotted. And Evan? I whispered. There's an investigation into his unemployment claims. They suspect he's been collecting benefits without applying for jobs. Fraud. I pressed a hand to my forehead. How bad? Lily could face felony charges. Evan's situation is less severe, but still criminal. Helen, you need to create distance. Immediately. I looked through the window. They were still chatting with Carol, blissfully unaware the past had finally caught up to them. I'll call you back, I said, and returned inside. So? Lily asked brightly. We're taking it. We'll take it, Evan said quickly. His expression had shifted, he suddenly seemed eager to secure independence. Wonderful, Carol smiled. I'll need first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. That brings the total to $4,500. I opened my checkbook. As promised, I'll cover the first month. And the rest? Lily asked, her voice cracking. You'll handle the remaining $3,000, I said. That's what adults do. But, we don't have $3,000. Then, I replied, finishing my signature with a calm flourish, you'll need to learn how to get it. The apartment won't wait forever. Evan's voice cracked. He was spiraling. Mom, we can't come up with that kind of money by tomorrow. Of course you can, I said calmly. You have until noon. Make it work. I handed Carol, the property manager, the check for $1,500. This holds the unit for 24 hours, right? That's correct, she said. If they don't bring the remaining balance by noon tomorrow, it goes to the next applicant. On the drive home, panic filled the back seat. We could sell something, Lily said, voice thin. Sell what? Evan snapped. We don't own anything worth more than $20. We could borrow money from friends. What friends? We've already hit everyone we know. Their frantic bickering didn't bother me. In fact, watching them crash into the reality they'd avoided for years gave me a strange sense of relief. There is one option, I said casually, pulling into my driveway. Both of them froze. What option? Evan asked, desperate. You could get jobs. Today. Any jobs. Fast food, dishwashing, day labor, cleaning crews. A lot of those places pay something on the first day. No one pays immediately. Lily protested. Wrong, I said. Restaurants do. Construction sites do. Cleaning companies do. You two have just been too proud to consider them. Mom, Evan said, voice cracking, please just loan us the money. We'll pay you back. With what? I asked. Neither of you has income. You're trying to skip to chapter 20 when you haven't done chapter 1. I put the car in park, then turned in my seat to face them. Evan. Lily. I need to tell you something important. They stiffened. What is it? Lily whispered. The police called while we were at the apartment. All the color drained from their faces. What did they want? She choked out. They want to interview me about irregularities in your employment record. Lily burst into tears. Evan stared straight ahead, silent and terrified. How much trouble are we in? He finally asked. That depends, I said, on how honest you've been with me. We told you everything, Lily sobbed. I shook my head. Lily, stealing $50,000 isn't taking some office supplies. She began shaking. And Evan, I added, claiming unemployment benefits while not applying for jobs is fraud. Who told you that? He demanded. People talk, I said evenly. This town is small. What I didn't tell them was that Adrian Brooks had sources at both the police department and the unemployment office. What happens now? Lily whispered. Now, I said, you decide whether to face these consequences as independent adults in your own apartment, or as unemployed criminals living in my home. The choice was brutal. And intentionally so. The next morning. When I came downstairs, they were already dressed, sitting at my kitchen table, looking like two people who had aged 10 years overnight. Morning, I said, pouring coffee. Figure out the deposit situation. Evan swallowed hard. We need to tell you something. I'm listening. Lily smoothed the front of her shirt. Last night, we applied for jobs. 6 places. Fast food, retail, a cleaning company, anywhere that hires quickly. That surprised me. And 3 places called back, Evan added. We have interviews today. But, Lily said softly, even if we both get hired, we won't have enough for the deposit by noon. So what are you asking? I said. We're not asking you for money, Evan said. We've decided to tell Carol we can't take the apartment. And then? We'd like to stay here for 30 days, Lily said, while we work and save. We'll pay you rent from our first paychecks. Whatever amount you choose. I studied them. The frantic entitlement was gone. Replaced with something I hadn't seen in years. Responsibility. What changed? I asked. Lily looked at her hands. We actually talked last night. Really talked. Not blaming, not dreaming about your money, just facing what we've done. And the police stuff scared us, Evan admitted. But it also made us realize running doesn't fix anything. This was the first mature conversation I'd had with them since the day they moved in. So, I said slowly, you want to stay here. And become independent. For real. If you'll let us, Evan said. Real jobs, real rent, real rules. I set down my mug. I have a counter-proposal. They both tensed. You may stay for 90 days, not 30. Once you get your paychecks, you'll pay me $500 a month in rent. That's very fair, Evan said gratefully. I'm not finished. They straightened. You'll attend financial literacy classes at the community college. You'll save 20% of everything you earn. And Lily, you will fully cooperate with the investigation and pay back every dollar you're responsible for. Agreed, Lily said instantly. And when the 90 days are up, I continued, you move out. No extensions. No negotiations. Understood, Evan said. I walked to the window, staring out at the garden their father and I planted decades ago. The sunlight felt warmer than usual. There's something else I haven't told you about the property sale, I said. What is it? Lily asked. I'm not keeping all the money. They blinked. I'm putting $2 million into conservative investments for my retirement. The remaining $500,000 is going into a trust. Evan's mouth fell open. A trust, for who? For my grandchildren. And if the two of you can prove you can manage your lives responsibly, there may be something left for you someday. The silence that followed was thick, but not with fear. With possibility. Mom, Evan said quietly, we won't let you down. See that you don't, I replied. This is the last chance you'll get. Lily stood. I need to get ready for my interview. What job? I asked. Night shift at the grocery store. Stocking shelves. I nodded. Honest work. Yes, she said. It is. That afternoon, after they left, I called Adrian. You're giving them another chance, he asked. I'm giving them the chance to earn another chance, I said. If they fail again, it'll be as independent adults, not dependencies in my home. That's fair, he said. There's one more thing, I added. I want to update my will. More changes. Yes. I want it to reward kindness and penalize selfishness. Can we structure that? Helen, he said, admiration in his voice, I think we can craft exactly that. 6 months later. Evan was promoted to assistant manager at the hardware store where he'd started as a stock clerk. Lily finished her community service and earned a full-time bookkeeping job, one where she'd rebuilt trust the hard way. They moved out exactly 90 days after our agreement. Not a day later. And 3 years later, when the hospital called, it was Evan who rushed to drive me, and Lily who brought homemade soup while I recovered. Sometimes the most life-changing gift you can give people is the one they have to earn.